You're listening to The Philosopher's Note on Rich Dad, Poor Dad. More wisdom in less time.
Hi, this is Brian. Welcome to The Philosopher's Notes on Rich Dad, Poor Dad. What rich teach their kids about money that the poor and middle class do not, by Robert Kiyosaki. We'll jump right in with a quote. One dad would say, quote, "The love of money is the root of all evil. The other, the lack of money, is the root of all evil." So can you believe that Robert Kiyosaki has written 18 books in the Rich Dad, Poor Dad series that have sold over 26 million copies? Yep, staggering. And as with all success stories, there's a reason. Kiyosaki has a knack for getting right at the heart of the issue. And in his simple, unpretentious prose, he captures our attention and gives us some powerful ideas to think about and implement into our own lives, addressing what has to be one of the most challenging arenas for all of us, money. He says, quote, "One dad had a habit of saying, 'I can't afford it.' The other dad forbade those words to be used. He insisted I say, 'How can I afford it?'" End quote. Juxtaposing his biological, educated, government-employed father, who always struggled financially, the poor dad, with his best friend's entrepreneurial, wealthy father, who we call the rich dad, Kiyosaki weaves a compelling story about how the rich think more than a little differently than the poor and the middle class. The challenge with this book, as with so many others, is that there are so many big ideas to discuss in so little time. If you haven't already read the book, it's probably a must if you're committed to getting your financial house in order. If you've already read it, you may dig a reread. In any case, let's get to work. The first big idea is work and money. Quote, "Just know that it's fear that keeps most people working at a job. The fear of not paying their bills, the fear of being fired, the fear of not having enough money, the fear of starting over. That's the price of studying to learn a profession or trade, and then working for money. Most people become a slave to money, and then get angry at their boss." End quote. Well, that unfortunately sums it up, doesn't it? How about you? Are you in a job you don't love because of fear you won't be able to make it on your own? And then resenting your boss for your own predicament? Not a good idea. That would fall into the being a victim mode psychologists and philosophers alike establish is not where you want to play. As T. Harv Eker says in his classic, eminently inspiring and practical, and surprisingly funny book, Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, he says, "You can be a victim or you can be rich, but you can't be both. Listen up. Every time, and I mean every time you blame, justify, or complain, you are slitting your financial throat." End quote. So, what would you do if you weren't afraid? If you were absolutely guaranteed to succeed, what would you dare to dream and to do? Good. Rich Dad would be proud. Now, what are your next steps? As Emerson teaches us, always, 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 always do what you were afraid to do. And he also advises, do the thing you fear, and the death of fear is certain. I guess he felt pretty strongly about that. All right, the next big idea is money psychosis. Quote, "The avoidance of money is just as psychotic as being attached to money." Quote, where do you fall on the money psychosis scale? Attached to it or avoiding it? Or are you healthfully engaged in the circulation of abundance? The good news is that there is a way out, which is the next big idea. Choose your thoughts. Quote, "Going into our fear and confronting our greed, our weaknesses, our neediness is the way out. And the way out is through the mind, by choosing our thoughts." End quote. Do you choose what you think, or do you find yourself simply reacting to your emotions? Rich Dad would suggest strongly that you learn to think and to choose those thoughts consciously and carefully. And while we're at that, it's time for all of us to develop our financial literacy, which is the next big idea. Kiyosaki says, quote, "I am concerned that too many people are focused too much on money and not on their greatest wealth, which is their education. If people are prepared to be flexible, keep an open mind and learn, they will grow richer and richer through the changes. If they think money will solve the problems, I'm afraid those people will have a rough ride. Intelligence solves problems and produces money. Money without financial intelligence is money soon gone." End quote. So are you investing in your financial intelligence? If you're reading these notes, then I definitely say yes. As Byron Katie says in Loving What Is, the greatest stock market you can invest in is yourself. Finding this truth is better than finding a gold mine. And as you master this important aspect of your life, All of the Philosopher's Notes will be an incredibly powerful investment in yourself, a gold mine that will produce for years and years and years, getting more abundance as you mature and master yourself rather than getting depleted. In addition to the general notes, I highly recommend my notes on spiritual economics, the science of getting rich, the secrets of the millionaire mind, the 7 spiritual laws of success, and it's not about the money. And some other tips, read all the other financial stuff that fires you up, whether that's Forbes or Fortune or some other magazine or another book or 10 on the subject. And if you haven't read other Rich Dad books, check them out and consider getting Kiyosaki's Cash Flow Game if you're really into it. And have fun while you master your financial literacy. In any case, let's move on to big idea, rule number 1, buy assets. Quote, you must know the difference between an asset and a liability and buy assets, end quote. So do you know the difference between an asset and a liability? And which are you buying? As Kiyosaki says, quote, rich people acquire assets. Poor and middle class acquire liabilities, but they think they're assets, end quote. So pop quiz that he gives us, is the house you live in an asset or a liability? You can insert some Jeopardy music here. Do, 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 do. However that goes. All right, time's up. Asset or liability? If you answered liability, you win. If you answered asset, hate to break it to you, but as Kiyosaki says, that mortgage you have is a liability. How could that be? According to Kiyosaki, quote, an asset is something that puts money in my pocket. A liability is something that takes money out of my pocket, end quote. And continues, if you want to be rich, simply spend your life buying assets. If you want to be poor or middle class, spend your life buying liabilities. It's not knowing the difference that causes most of the financial struggle in the real world, end quote. So why is tying all your money up into a liability like your home a problem? Well, consider this. The next big idea, opportunity costs. Quote, the most important rule is to know the difference between an asset and a liability. Once you understand the difference, concentrate your efforts on only buying income-generating assets. So one of my favorite lessons in Economics 1 at UCLA was the idea of opportunity costs. The idea, as you likely know, is simple. Whenever you spend time or money on one activity, to equate the cost of that investment, of the time or money, you need to not only calculate the actual time or money, you need to account for the lost opportunity. Because, of course, if you do one thing when you could have done another, your potential true cost is huge, way bigger than the actual outlay. Does that make sense? I'll let Robert bring the point home. He says, quote, the greatest losses of all are those from missed opportunities. If all your money is tied up in your house, you may be forced to work harder because your money continues blowing out of the expense column instead of adding an asset to the column, the classic middle-class cash flow problem, end quote. So to summarize that and make it practical, if all of your money is tied up into your house, which you would call a liability, you're not going to have the capital base to go out and start your own business, which would be an asset, creating income for you. So bear in mind the opportunity costs of everything we invest our time and energy into. And let's think about the next big idea, wealth. Quote, wealth is a person's ability to survive so many number of days forward. Or if I stopped working today, how long could I survive? End quote. What's your wealth? How many days could you survive if you stopped working today? So if that question made you gasp and want to turn this off or run away, please take a deep breath, honor the process of increasing your financial aptitude, deal with what is, and get your mojo cooking. If that number's big and you got many, many days you can go forward, right on. Think about how you can most creatively use that asset base to really give yourself to the world. And remember, quote, the single most powerful asset we all have is our mind. If it is trained well, it can create enormous wealth in what seems to be an instant, end quote. So if you're digging this, you're going to want to dig deeper into the book for more info on the pragmatics of financial literacy. For now, let's take a quick look at the obstacles to creating wealth. The next big idea is overcoming obstacles. Quote, there are 5 main reasons why financially literate people may still not develop abundance in the asset column. 1, fear. 2, cynicism. 3, laziness. 4, bad habits. 5, arrogance, end quote. So the last part of the book is all about overcoming obstacles. It's very cool. Some of my favorite big ideas are fear. Yes, fear again. Quote, we all have tremendous potential, and we all are blessed with gifts. Yet the one thing that holds all of us back is some degree of self-doubt. It is not so much the lack of technical information that holds us back, but more the lack of self-confidence. End quote. So we hit on this theme a little earlier, and if you haven't noticed, we've hit on it in nearly every note so far. So the question again is, what would you do if you weren't afraid? And in the PDF, I actually provide a little space where you can answer that question. If I wasn't afraid, I would. So if you're driving right now, you might want to push pause and really just dream about what you would do if you weren't afraid. If you were totally guaranteed to succeed, what would you do? You have a pen and paper handy, get out and stop this and write that down, right? And go ahead and write on another 10 pages if you need to, or 100 pages if you need to. Get it out. And as you reflect on that, remember, Kiyosaki says, quote, "The fear of losing money is real. Everyone has it, even the rich. But it's not fear that is the problem. It's how you handle the fear. It's how you handle losing. It's how you handle failure that makes a difference in one's life. That goes for anything in life, not just money. The primary difference between a rich person and a poor person is how they handle that fear." End quote. So how are you handling your fear? My personal recommendation would be approach it like the hero in Paul Bunyan's novel Pilgrim's Progress. In this story, his hero has a special shield, a magical shield. It protects him from everything in front of him. As long as he heads straight at his challenges, he's invincible. If, however, he chooses to turn and run away, the shield loses its power, and he's suddenly vulnerable. So the lesson is, go straight at your challenges. Do so, and you're invincible. Emerson, you may recall from above, says the exact same thing. In his words, we must always, 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 always do the thing we fear. And as we do this, the death of fear is certain. Again, so what are you afraid of? What would you do if you weren't afraid? Time to do that. And now would be an acceptable time to do it. If you need to turn this off and come back to it later, that would be fantastic. All right, the next big idea is focus. If you have little money, this is a quote, and you want to be rich, you must first be focused, not balanced. If you look at anyone successful, at the start they were not balanced. Balanced people go nowhere. They stay in one spot. To make progress, you must first go unbalanced. Just look at how you make progress walking. End quote. I love that. This is another sentiment echoed by all the great creators and teachers. A few of my favorite thoughts on the subject. Alexander Graham Bell, who says, "Concentrate all your thoughts on the task at hand. The sun's rays do not burn until brought to a focus." Thomas Edison says, "The first requisite of success is the ability to apply your physical and mental energies to one problem without growing weary." And Seneca, in Letters from a Stoic, says, "To be everywhere is to be nowhere." And Peter Senge from The Fifth Discipline says, "Personal mastery is the discipline of continually clarifying and deepening our personal vision, of focusing our energies, of developing patience, and of seeing reality objectively." And how about T. Harv Eker from Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, who says, "The first thing I did was commit to my success in playing to win. I swore I would focus and not even consider leaving this business until I was a millionaire or more. This was radically different from my previous efforts where, because I always thought short term, I would constantly get sidetracked by either good opportunities or when things got tough." All right, and the final big idea is give, give, give. Kiyosaki says, quote, "Whenever you feel short or in need of something, give what you want first and it will come back in buckets. That is true for money, a smile, love, friendship. I know it is often the last thing a person wants to do, but it has always worked for me. I just trust that the principle of reciprocity is true, and I give what I want." End quote. So what do you want? Money, love, support, attention, appreciation? How can you give more of it today? Get on that, and let's circulate as much abundance as we possibly can as we push our edges and celebrate this precious hero's journey. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, we have now wrapped up the body of this note. I'm going to share a little bio on Robert Kiyosaki and then some other philosophers' notes I think you'll enjoy if you like this one, and then some of the quotes from the sidebar of the PDF, and then we'll be officially done. So, Robert Toru Kiyosaki, born April 8th, 1947, is an investor, businessman, self-help author, and motivational speaker. Kiyosaki is best known for his Rich Dad, Poor Dad series of motivational books and other material. He's written 18 books which combined have sold over 26 million copies. 3 of his books, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Rich Dad's Cash Flow Quadrant, and Rich Dad's Guide to Investing, have been on the top 10 bestseller lists simultaneously on the Wall Street Journal, USA Today, and the New York Times. The book Rich Kid, Smart Kid was published in 2001 with the intent to help parents teach their children financial concepts. He has created 3 cash flow board and software games for adults and children and has a series of Rich Dad audio cassettes and discs. He also publishes a monthly newsletter that's adapted from Wikipedia. You can check out richdadpoordad.com for more. All right, and if you like this note and you're interested in getting your spirituality and your capitalism mastered, I think you'll enjoy the notes on Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, 7 Spiritual Laws of Success, Spiritual Economics, The Science of Getting Rich, and It's Not About the Money. Alrighty, how about some of the quotes from the sidebar? We'll start with Kiyosaki, who says, "The poor and the middle class work for money. The rich have money work for them." And Ralph Waldo Emerson says, "God will not have his work made manifest by cowards." And Rich Dad says, "I want to teach you to master the power of money, not be afraid of it. They don't teach you that in school. If you don't learn it, you become a slave to money." And he also says, "If you want to be rich, you need to be financially literate." Kiyosaki says about this of debt, "If you find you have dug yourself into a hole, stop digging." And he also says, "The rich buy assets, the poor only have expenses. The middle class buys liabilities they think are assets." And he says, "This pattern of treating your home as an investment and the philosophy that a pay raise means you can buy a larger home or spend more is the foundation of today's debt-ridden society." And most people work from January to May just to pay the government. And he says, "JOB is an acronym for just over broke." And life is much like going to the gym. The most painful part is deciding to go. Once you get past that, it's easy. And how about, "I recognize that it was excessive fear and self-doubt that were the greatest detractors of personal genius." And finally, "I strongly urge students to learn to take risks, to be bold, to let their genius convert that fear into power and brilliance." Well, I can't think of any better way to wrap up this note. May our genius convert our fears into power and brilliance. Have a fantastic day, and I'll look forward to sharing more with you soon.
We hope you enjoyed this Philosopher's Note. Please go to www.philosophersnotes.com to download more.